Liverpool, 1934. The city hums with the clatter of shipyards and the sharp tang of salt from the River Mersey. The streets are alive with workers, merchants, and the constant rhythm of industry. Above it all, a boy named Brian Epstein grows up, already moving a little differently, seeing the world in sharper lines, softer colours, and endless possibility. You walk with him into the Epstein family store, NEMS, North End music stores. Furniture lines the walls, radios hum from the shelves, and polished pianos gleam under the lights. Brian moves among them with careful steps, noticing the small details, the way a chair's leg is carved, how the counter reflects the morning sun. Everything has a place. Everything must be just so. Brian himself is impeccably dressed. His suit is neat, his hair combed with precision. He adjusts a display of records, straightens a stack of sheet music, and steps back, surveying the scene. He is quiet but exacting, refined in a city that is rough and loud. He longs for beauty and order in a world of grit and noise. He greets each customer politely, remembers their tastes, anticipates their questions. Then, a small interruption. A teenager comes into the shop and asks for a record. "My Bonnie," he says. "By the Beatles?" Brian stops. He peers at the boy, at the record in his hands. There's something in the name, something in the rhythm of it, that sparks a curiosity deep in him. He walks over to the record player, sets it spinning, and listens. The music catches him off guard. It is raw, lively, and yet full of charm, chaotic and precise at the same time. He imagines the boys behind it, scrappy, talented, untamed. He feels something he rarely feels in this polished store, a pulse of possibility. Right there, in the quiet elegance of NEMS, Brian Epstein decides. These boys, this music, he will guide it. He will shape it. He will give it the world. And in that moment, the Fifth Beatle is born, though no one in Liverpool quite knows it yet. It's a damp November evening in 1961. You follow Brian Epstein down the narrow, brick-lined streets of Liverpool's city centre. The neon glow of the Cavern Club spills onto the wet cobblestones. The muffled thrum of a bass, the snap of a snare, and a voice that's rough, confident, magnetic seep through the doorway. Brian pauses at the entrance, adjusts his tie and steps inside. The club is crowded, smoky, alive with chatter and the occasional laugh cutting through the music. On stage, 4 young men play with an energy that seems almost too big for the small basement room. John Lennon's voice is sharp and sarcastic. Paul McCartney's harmonies glide effortlessly. George Harrison's guitar cuts through with a subtle brilliance, and Pete Best keeps time with a steady, driving rhythm. Brian watches from the edge of the room, taking it all in. The boys are scrappy, unpolished, chaotic, but something about them grips him. Their presence feels electric, alive, urgent. He leans closer, listening, imagining how this energy could be refined, shaped, and presented to the world. He introduces himself after the set. The boys are sceptical at first. Brian is well-dressed, polite, precise, the opposite of everything they know. But there is a seriousness in his eyes, a determination that wins them over. By the end of the night, a tentative trust forms. He promises to help them, to guide them. Despite his lack of experience in managing bands, they sense that he believes in them in a way no one else has. Brian's first acts are subtle but crucial. He insists they wear suits, straighten their hair, arrive on time. He coaches them on public appearances, sharpens their image without dulling their spark. Each small adjustment feels revolutionary in the rough, casual world of Liverpool clubs. But getting a recording contract proves far harder. He knocks on doors, pitches the band, faces rejection after rejection. Labels don't understand them, underestimate them, or simply refuse to take the risk. Still, Brian perseveres. Each no only sharpens his resolve. He knows what he hears in the Cavern Club that night is rare. He knows the world will hear it too, but only if he can break through the walls of doubt and scepticism. And so he pushes on, a quiet figure behind the chaos, determined to make the raw talent on that tiny stage into something unforgettable. Brian Epstein walks into EMI's Parlophone offices with a mixture of nerves and quiet determination. The year is 1962, and he carries with him a polished young band from Liverpool, the Beatles. The doors open to a world of suits and scepticism. He introduces the boys to George Martin, a producer who doesn't yet see what Brian sees, a spark, a pulse, a sound that could shake the world. He watches the boys carefully. Paul adjusts his tie, John fiddles with his guitar, George is quiet but focused, and Pete keeps time on the drums with a casual confidence. Brian steps in, gently coaching, correcting, smoothing edges without stripping their energy. He has no formal experience, no blueprint, only intuition and an unshakable belief. When George Martin hesitates, Brian leans forward. He pitches every nuance, every melody, every moment he's imagined. He insists, he persuades, he refuses to leave without a commitment. And slowly the deal is made. The Beatles get their first recording session. Next comes the tough decision. Pete Best, steady and competent on drums, must be replaced. It is delicate, painful, but Brian knows what the band needs. Ringo Starr, whose rhythm matches their energy and whose presence completes the group. He navigates the tension carefully, balancing diplomacy and decisiveness. The lineup is finally right. Brian's work goes beyond contracts. He moulds their public image, suits, haircuts, punctuality, professionalism. Every interview, every photo, every handshake is an opportunity to present the Beatles to the world as polished, approachable, irresistible. He is the quiet hand behind the spectacle, the invisible architect of Beatlemania. But success does not come instantly. Brian struggles to manage venues, media and fan frenzy. Tours are chaotic, contracts are messy, and the world is slow to recognise the genius he sees. Yet he perseveres. Every rejection, every misstep, every logistical nightmare only fuels his resolve. And then it happens. The first single climbs the charts. The press notices. Liverpool buzzes with excitement, and the boys begin their ascent. From the tiny Cavern Club to the national stage, Brian Epstein has transformed raw talent into a cultural phenomenon. He has made the dream real, but the best he knows is yet to come. Brian Epstein walks through the corridors of fame like a careful navigator in a storm. The year is 1965. The Beatles are everywhere. Touring, recording, appearing on television, filling stadiums with screaming fans. Every moment is orchestrated, yet chaos lurks beneath the surface. Brian feels it first, a tightness in his chest, a quiet loneliness no applause can fill. He moves from city to city, hotel to hotel, always a step ahead of disaster. Contracts, travel arrangements, interviews. The work never ends. He manages not just the Beatles, but their growing roster of acts, Cilla Black, Jerry, and the Pacemakers, and others. Each demands attention, each carries potential. Brian bends under the weight, but never breaks in public. Yet the pressures are relentless. He watches the boys struggle with their own fame. John grows restless. Paul worries about perfection. George searches for meaning. Ringo longs for simplicity. Brian feels their fears almost as his own. He is the invisible anchor, keeping them tethered to the world, smoothing friction, negotiating crises. And in private, Brian battles his own demons. He is isolated, hiding his sexuality in a society that punishes openness. He leans on pills and alcohol to steady nerves frayed by constant stress. He yearns for connection, for someone to understand him fully. Yet fame and duty keep him at a distance from everyone. The world sees him as confident, polished, in control. But in the quiet moments, alone in a hotel room or backstage, he feels the weight of expectation pressing down. Every decision carries consequences. Every misstep could undo the fragile balance he has built. Brian begins to sense that no amount of professionalism or polish can shield him from the cost of fame, his own and the Beatles'. The world is moving faster than he can manage, and the glimmering heights of success cast long shadows. Still, he pushes on. He knows the music, the energy, the brilliance of the band is worth every sacrifice. But as the tours grow longer, the contracts more complex, and the world's gaze more intense, Brian begins to realise that being the fifth Beatle comes with a price measured not in money or fame, but in solitude, anxiety, and the fragile human heart behind the manager's suit. It's August 1967. The world is in the midst of the summer of love. Psychedelia and experimentation define the music scene. The Beatles are no longer the scrappy boys from Liverpool. They are cultural icons, their influence stretching across continents. But Brian Epstein feels increasingly out of step. He walks alone through his London apartment, the polished floors gleaming under the soft light. Everything is in order. Every suit hung perfectly, every document in place, yet nothing can organise the storm inside him. The pressures of managing the world's most famous band, combined with his private struggles, weigh heavily. He has been isolated for years, hiding his sexuality in a society that would not accept him. Every day he navigates public expectation while suppressing private truth. The work is relentless. Tours, contracts, press obligations, merchandising headaches. It never ends. Even at the height of Beatlemania, he cannot rest. Pills and alcohol have become a crutch, temporary relief from the anxiety and loneliness that gnaw at him. He tries to stay ahead of crises, to maintain the polished image the world expects. But behind the facade, he is exhausted, vulnerable, and increasingly depressed. Brian's relationship with the Beatles begins to shift. They are evolving artistically, exploring new sounds and philosophies. He feels the distance grow. Though they respect and care for him, they no longer need him in the same way. The role he has inhabited for so long, the fifth Beatle, the guiding hand, begins to feel uncertain, fragile, even empty. On August 27th, 1967, at the age of 32, Brian Epstein dies. The cause is an overdose of sleeping pills. It is a tragic moment, sudden yet, in some ways, inevitable for a man carrying so much in silence. The Beatles are devastated. The world mourns a figure many barely knew, yet all felt through the music he helped shape. Brian's legacy, however, endures. Without him, the Beatles might never have become the phenomenon that changed music and culture forever. He invented the modern music manager, combining vision, diplomacy, and devotion. He elevated not just the Beatles, but the entire idea of what a band could be: stylish, professional, and globally recognised. In remembering Brian Epstein, we see both brilliance and vulnerability, genius and fragility, and a quiet courage to a world that often failed to understand him. His story reminds us that behind every great success there can be invisible struggles, and that compassion and understanding are as vital as ambition and vision. Brian Epstein's life was brief, yet it was transformative. He taught the world to listen, to see, and to dream bigger than they ever imagined. And though his own light dimmed too soon, it continues to shine in every note the Beatles ever played, in every heartbeat of modern music he helped shape.